going to start our primers with an inchworm. You're trying to keep your legs as straight as possible and then get your hands in front as you walk out until your hands are in line with your shoulders. Then walk your hands back to your feet until you're in a standing position. Try to keep your legs locked out and come back to that standing position. Just as he demonstrates again, making sure that you're engaging your core and not dropping your hips too low, coming back up to an upright position. Okay, so you do 10 repetitions there. The next exercise that you're going to do is the crouching hamstring stretch. This is a good primer to get your hamstrings engaged. So you're going to take a wider stance than shoulder width. You're going to grab your feet, and then if possible, you're going to sink down so that your hips are below the level of your knees, looking straight ahead, set your shoulder blades back. And then as you try to straighten your legs and lock out, you try to keep your hands on your feet. Now, this might not be possible, but do your best to keep your hands there. Then you'll sink back down into that position where your hips are below the level of your knees or as low as you can possibly go. And then you're coming back up to that position. Just make sure that your knees are locked out there. Okay, that will be your second primer. Your next primer will be your hip flexor opener. So you'll have your hands shoulder width apart. You'll have one leg, stepping one leg forward to the outside so that shin is vertical. Now the hand that is closest to the foot, you'll lift up in the air, try to reach up so that both hands are in line, and you watch your hand as it goes up, and then you bring your hand back down. Now if you can here, try to get your elbow to your ankle. If you've got good hip flexor mobility and your piriformis and glutes aren't too tight, you may be able to do this. If not, just hand to the floor, reaching up. Watch your hand the whole time. You do 10 repetitions on one side, then you do 10 on the other. Okay? Very good. And reaching up and opening up that chest. Okay, so we'll move on to the next stretch, which is from a standing position. You're going to do your YTW. So you'll start with a Y. This is to warm up your shoulders. Try to get your hands out in front of you, creating a Y position with your arms. Good. Set your shoulder blades back and down. See how your thumbs are pointed behind you as they go back and in front as you go forward. Good. So you do 10 repetitions of a Y. Now you're going to the T. So your hands are by your side. You lift them up to the level of your shoulders, setting your shoulder blades back and down the whole time. Bring it back down to your side. Bring it back up. And bringing it back down. You do 10 repetitions there. Then we finish off with the W. So create a W shape where your elbows are in line with your shoulders. Let's work your rotator cuff muscles. So you bring your hands forward and then try to bring them back as far possible, as physically possible. Trying to keep that elbow in line with your shoulders the whole time. Looking straight ahead and setting your shoulder blades back and down. That's the first warm up. So once you go through all those sequence of exercises, that's the inchworm, the crouching hamstring stretch for 10 repetitions, the hip flexor for 10 on each side. Then you do 2 rounds. This HIIT session where you'll be doing 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off for 8 times for each exercise. We're going to start with kick sits. So this is where you're going to have your hands in line with your shoulders, your knees are bent, and then you're trying to kick one leg through as you lift that hand and then kick the other leg through. You'll be working hard for 20 seconds, resting for 10 seconds, 8 times. Good. Okay, so moving on to the second exercise. You've got 2 options here. You can do burpees, chest to floor. This is option 1. Okay, option 2 is to do single-legged burpees, but it's hands to floor. Jumping it forward, jumping out. So you do the first 20 seconds if you're doing single-legged burpees. Then you'd have 10 seconds rest. Then you go on to the other side for the next 20 seconds, which would mean you do 4 sets on the left leg, 4 sets on the right leg. So you've got to choose your option there. Option 3 is moving plank. So you're on the floor. You're in a press-up position with your hands in line with your chest. Then you bring one elbow down to the floor, then the other. Then you come back up on your hand, and then back up on the other hand. So you'd lead with one side for 20 seconds. You'd rest for 10 seconds, and then you'd do the other side. So that would be 4 leading with the left and 4 leading with the right. Exercise number 4 is polar bears. So in that position, you're going to have your knees tracking in line with your hips, your hands tracking in line with your shoulders. You lift your knees off the floor only a couple of inches. Then you rock back, keeping a straight back. Then you come forward so that your shoulders are in line with your hands. Rock back again, and then rock forward. Your quadricep muscles should be the main prime movers here. You do 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off, 8 times. Good. Okay, now the fifth exercise is jumping lunges. So you're in a standing position here. You're making sure that your legs are at a right angle. You step back with one leg. Now when the clock ticks off, you're jumping forward and back. You're really trying to explode off that front foot and off the back foot, trying to get height. Once your legs start to fatigue, as they will as you get deeper into the intervals, then you can do what's called a split squat. So you're not going down as low. You may do this for one set and you find that your legs have recovered, so you go back into the jumping lunges. Moving on to the next exercise, you're going to do a bear crawl. So kind of like the polar bear position to start off with, but then you're moving your opposite arm and opposite leg forward, keeping your back nice and straight as you move forward. You'd move forward if you've got a small space. You could go 2 to 3 steps forward, 2 to 3 steps back. If you've got 10 meters space, you might want to, or 10 to 5 meters, you could go there and back each time. But you want to do the backward movement as much as you're doing the forward movement. Moving on to the next exercise, you're going to do squat thrust in a wide stance. So you have your hands shoulder width apart and then you're jumping your legs off. Then you're releasing your hands as well. So you're kind of getting into a froggy position where your head is up and you're dropping your hips. Doing 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off, 8 times. Now finishing off, we're going to do press up rotations. So you might not get many out within that 20 seconds, you've got to work pretty hard. So you'd start with in a press up position, perform a press up, then lift that hand, the far hand, rotate around, press up on the other side. So rotate around. If you've got problems with your wrist here, you might just have to perform press ups, but do your best to do this action because it's trying to get your heart rate up, as working an element of upper body strength. So you've finished those 8 exercises. You've done 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off for 8 sets of each exercise. Should take you roughly 32 minutes. You might have to rest in between them, might take you a little bit longer. Do your stretching. So your static stretching, where you're going, if you have a TheraBand at home, you'd use this. You wrap it around your foot, making sure that it's at least 1/3 up your foot or in the middle. Then lie back, bend one leg and keep that other leg straight. Flex your toe towards you and keep the leg as straight as possible. If you feel like the band is slipping, you can wrap it around your foot a couple of times just to add some security so that it doesn't flick back at you. You'll hold the stretch for 60 seconds on each leg, maintaining a straight leg with your knee locked out. And then once you've done both sides, 60 seconds on each side, you're going to move into working your glutes or piriformis. So you can do this one or two ways. So you can either do a pigeon pose stretch, which is where you try to bring your leg in front of your body and then lift that foot so it's as close to the level as your knee as possible, straighten the back leg, then bring your weight over that leg. So coming forward, you can try to go down on your forearms if possible to get a deeper stretch. And try to keep that back leg straight as you hold the stretch. If that foot shifts down, just hold it in position. If you can't do a pigeon pose stretch or you've got knee issues, then the alternative is to lie on your back, put the side of your shoe on the front of your thigh on the other leg, lift the other foot up, and then there's a triangle. You put one hand through the triangle, the other hand on the outside of the leg, interlocking your fingers. You'll keep your foot in line with your knee, flexing your toe towards you. Again, you'd hold 60 seconds on each side, so you can choose from one or two of those stretches. Then from there, we're going to look to try to stretch your back and your chest at the same time. So if you've got a Swiss ball at home, use a Swiss ball. If you don't have a Swiss ball, equally you could just use a chair. So you're going to put your hands on top of the Swiss ball or the chair, whatever you have available. Then you lock out your elbows, and then you're going to sit in kind of like a child's pose stretch. You'll set your shoulder blades back and down, engaging your rhomboid, your subscapularis, and then trying to open up your pecs as well, your chest, by dropping down into that stretch. Hold this stretch for about 30 to 60 seconds if possible. Now moving on to the next stretch, we're going to try to do your quadriceps and your hip flexors at the same time. So again, if you've got the Swiss ball, you can use this. If not, you could use a chair. You're going to put your back foot on top of the chair or the ball. You're going to bend the front leg at a right angle, so the leg at front, the shin should be vertical, straight up and down. The knee should be in line with the ankle. Now you're going to tilt your pelvis forward a little bit, so pushing your pelvis forward, you should feel a good stretch in the quadricep muscles in the back leg. So the leg that is on the ball, you should feel a stretch in the front of your thigh. You'd hold for 60 seconds on one leg, and then you'd change sides and do 60 seconds on the other. The final stretch that you're going to do is to stretch your lower back. You don't need any equipment for this. You're going to lie on your back. You're going to put your hands out to the side, not quite shoulder level, so your hands shouldn't be in line with your shoulders, just below. Keep your feet together, knees together, and you're going to bring them from side to side. Keeping your feet one foot on top of the other, and then just slowly bringing them towards the floor if possible. You can look in the other direction than your legs are going as well, just to increase the intensity of the stretch. You do 10 repetitions on each side. You could hold for 2 to 3 seconds once you're in that position. And that's the whole dynamic, that's the whole static warm-up done. You do one sequence.